everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Deborah Breitfeld, and I'm the Executive Director and CEO of the New Mexico Technology Council. And I'd like to welcome you, yay, all in person. Yay. And it's wonderful as we all get to come back together. So thank you so much for joining us. We always want to thank our community partners and our members for their support, our board members, many of them who are here today, and my colleagues and my staff. I'm so fortunate to have such great team members. Mary Tiemann, our Director of Membership and Community Affairs, my co-pilot, and Emily Bennett, our Marketing and Events Manager, fairly new to the Tech Council. She came on board and we threw her right in, and she's been running ever since. So really appreciative for that. Wouldn't be able to put this on without the help of our peer group committee members. So thank you so much to Renee Moya. I'll turn it over to her. And to the committee members and to all of you, and especially, you know, what a wonderful thing we were able to do. Hopefully the last time via Zoom, but to celebrate our 13th annual Women in Technology Awards. And to have a number of our honorees here in the audience as well. Sarah Bourvet from last year. She's doing wonderful things at Fab Lab Hub, and you know, whether you're a WIT honoree or not, we consider all of you to be tremendous women in technology and just women in the workforce. So we recognize, and our wonderful men who support all of us. James Brown, our board member from Rhodes Group, Krishna from Kosh Solutions, and Casey. Oh, Bruce Pitt, by the way. I have to do a Mary thing. Bruce Pitt from Mountain Vector Energy. They are doing amazing work, and he is also headquartered here at Fat Pipe. So also just share the word. Fat Pipe, New Mexico is a wonderful place to be here in Albuquerque, and they have locations now in Rio Rancho, Edgewood, Taos. Am I missing one? But anyways, it's a great place to work. We're so lucky to have a partner like Bruce as we're going hybrid, and Emily and I are trying all the solutions, and Bruce said, buy this, buy this, buy this. So I said, well, I don't know how. So he sent me the links. So I got exactly what Bruce told me. And then I said, what kind of wine do you like? He said, Gewürztraminer. So that's what Bruce was having today. So anyways, thank you, everybody. And again, this year we celebrate not only our 13th annual event, but celebrating over 100 women in technology as leaders in our community. And so it's really tremendous from all over the state. You know, we really, as we all know, have tremendous assets here, the universities, the national labs, the private sector, the entrepreneurs like Shelley and Stephanie and Tara, actually all of the entrepreneurs here. So thank you so much. And for that, I will turn it over to Renee Moya, who has been also a Women in Tech honoree and who has been part of our board for a number of years.
Don't date me.
And no, I don't want to date her. I just don't want her to tire out. Please keep loving us.
I'm exhausted, but no, I love it. You know what? This is probably one of the best communities that I've ever been a part of. I've been tech recruiting for 20 years in different cities, and I love Albuquerque and I love the women in tech community here. It's so awesome to come together and to see all these fantastic you know, ladies and you know, men that support the women in tech and diversity in our community. There's a lot of great stuff happening with WIT. This is our second in-person event. We had a fantastic event for women in tech battling bots, where we competed with robots. I didn't do that well, but there was wine involved, so I blame it on that. I feel like I was sabotaged, but you know, no. And Shelley partnered with us, and Be Greater Than Average had a fantastic event, so it was great. And we're excited to have today's virtual and in-person event to hear more from our WIT 2021 honorees and, a little bit about their journey and what they're passionate about, and to really network with each other. Albuquerque is a fantastic city for women in tech. We are ranked one of the top 10 cities in the nation for women in tech. We have one of the higher pay equalities, making 95 cents on the dollar to our male counterpart. Our representation is higher than the national average at 30%. There's still a lot of work to be done, which is why these groups are so important. And so we really appreciate everybody that shows up today and supports, each other and the up and coming women in tech. And that's really our mission here. And so mark your calendar for the 4th Thursday of the month. We meet every month, and there's a lot of good events coming up. So with no further ado, I will turn it over to Sue Ann, who is our lovely moderator, and she's on the WIT committee, as well as Tanya Chavez, and Heidi is here as well. So we have a fantastic group of ladies that make this happen. Thank you so much, guys.
All right. All right, welcome everyone. I'm Sue Ann Athens. I was a WIT honoree in 2017 and never wanted to actually be selected because as a woman in technology, I never actually wanted to speak to anyone. I just wanted to. So one of the things that it really made us do, or at least me do, is obviously get out of that comfort zone and be recognized. Because one of the things we know is that if our young people don't see us in these positions, they won't know they can be us. So with that said, we have a great group of people that we're going to have a talk with today. And I'm going to go ahead and ask them to introduce themselves, right? Tell us what you do, and then what your passion is and why. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start with Tara.
All right. I am Tara King. I'm just starting a new job actually at a company called Automatic. I'm the director of developer relations there. Developer relations is about interacting with the community of developers around a product or around a company, and sort of empowering those folks to give, to be more involved. And my passion is open source software, and specifically diversity and inclusion inside of open source communities. Open source just means anyone can distribute, use, modify software. So rather than paying your bill to Adobe every month, you get the software for free. And it's built by typically volunteers around the world. So that's my passion. Did I hit all the questions?
So why?
Why is it my passion? Yeah. Before I was in tech, I was a secretary, which was a totally, I have so much respect for secretaries, and I found so few pathways forward, right, in that position. I just wanted to advance and have more challenges. And I could not find my path that way. And I got into open source software, kind of like on nights and weekends, because I knew people who were in it, and they all just seemed like they had these great careers. They made this money, they traveled, they knew so many people. It's like a very community oriented profession. So instead of having, my little one job that I worked with, like 10 people max, suddenly I was in this community of thousands of developers, and they were so welcoming to me. Mm-hmm. And so it was just really inspiring to go from somebody with zero technical training to an event where we're writing code for one of the biggest software projects in the world. And they're like, yeah, please come in. Yeah. Right. That was just mind blowing to me. I was like, well, no, I don't know. I can read typos. I can fix typos, and they were like, great, please come, So it was so welcoming. And I just think it has changed my life so much for the better that I'm always trying to give that back to people.
Awesome. And as a former coder, that kind of skill and technical editing where you can find that semicolon that is in the wrong place, that would be really good.
I think that's what they were thinking. Really, they were like, you can, yeah.
All right, Stephanie, why don't you share who you are and what you're passionate about and why?
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Gradia. I'm the Vice President of Health Analytics at RS21. That's a newly minted domain. The RS21 Health Lab is a new vertical of RS21.
Yeah.
Oh, thank
Wow.
you. Yes. For those of you who've known me and my co-founder longer than that, we actually started a healthcare analytics company called Versatile Med Analytics, or VMA, about 4 years ago. We were doing healthcare analytics. We got acquired by RS21 earlier this year, actually, to start the RS21 Health Lab. In my role there, I'm responsible for overseeing product strategy, implementation, services, our portfolio, and of course, our client success. Gosh, what am I passionate about? I'm passionate about a lot of things, whatever I'm on at the moment, but definitely I would say data and analytics is by and large a passion. I fell into that really on accident. I've always just been a really inquisitive person. Ever since childhood, I was always that really annoying person, you know, in class, like asking why and asking all the questions. I'm still that person, don't get me wrong. When I got to college, I stumbled into statistics. I found out that was the mathematical way to ask why and to answer the whys of the world. I thought I might want to be a nurse. I thought I might want to get into healthcare. Turns out I couldn't stand the sight of blood or the smell or the people or anything like that. So I started doing data and analytics. Yeah, I found my passion and my love there. And so now I get to ask why for a living, and I love it. One of the things I like best about my role beyond the data is working with people, being a support resource, being a right-hand man or woman, the go-to, and really helping people understand and like helping people learn and helping people look at data in a new way, because I think it's it's a new concept to a lot of folks. So I don't know why I'm passionate about that. I think a combination of neurosis and OCD and technology, but here I am and I love it.
No, I think that's awesome. I mean, we have a lot of people that I know that always say, oh, it's data-driven decisions, right? How many have heard that, right? Data-driven decisions. And can we have a dashboard for that, right? But then you're like, what question are you asking? What's the why?
Hey,
for
if you
it,
don't have the
right?
question, I'll help you find the question that you're trying to
It
ask.
almost is that we have to get to that. Let's figure out what the why is and what you want the dashboard. So your passion, I think, is a necessity in the world right now with all the data, right? Awesome. Shelley, why don't you share with us?
Sure. Well, good evening. I hope you all
Can we all speak up just a little?
a little bit more.
Okay, got it.
Pretend like we're in the opera. All right. So good evening. I'm Dr. Shelley Grunig, and I am CEO of Be Greater Than Average, which is a STEM enrichment program for kids, by kids, or kids at heart. And I also am executive director of R4 Creating, which is a nonprofit STEM support organization here in our community. And much like my data loving friends here, I love data. I think we've heard a lot of data as women and supporters of women in technology. We know, just moments ago, Renee shared Albuquerque is the top 10 cities for women in tech. That is amazing, right? But here's my question. Then why are we letting our daughters fall through the cracks? And so if you want to know what I'm passionate about, you can see it. I'm like, I could cry right now, but I am passionate about girls and getting young women into technology. I didn't realize, honestly, until about a year ago that I've been doing that since 2005. I've been coaching a robotics program, which has historically had 50% girls in my program. And someone said, you do that already. And so now we're naming it. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that tonight, but that is something I'm truly passionate about. I also work a lot with boys in technology too, so don't get me wrong. And mostly it's all about building strong character, community servants, and a really strong pool of STEM entrepreneurs, young people that want to fill that STEM workforce pipeline. And so that's my soapbox.
No, I love that
I'm here
soapbox.
tonight.
And we actually did the battle bots, and soon after that, I sent my nephew to the camp. And one of the things that I liked about it was you have equity from the start, right? It doesn't matter because everybody's so focused on team and building their robot that there was no conversation of, is it a he, is it a she, or what? And I thought that was really awesome in building, right? Not even setting these barriers, right? It's just none of them were there. So I'd love to hear more about that. So why don't we go ahead and get into that, Stephanie, and we'll start from that way and go this way.
All
right.
Start this
So
way.
what I'd like you to do is to go ahead and one of the things that I've asked the ladies to do is because, we're talking about data, we're talking about specifics. So I had a specific list of my expectations for them in this interview that of course will be free flowing with a lot of structure because it's me. But one of the things that I always had a problem with is what you're passionate about, but name at least 3 things you're doing to push that passion, right? So okay, you're talking about creating a space for the girls in STEM, right? Our children, our daughters, right? So what are 3 things and tactics that you're doing? And what do you expect that outcome to be? And then what do you want to ask of our community here that's ready to serve?
Okay, let's focus.
No pressure.
You are, yeah.
No pressure. You
You
can
all
drink a little
don't know,
wine before
I
you start. It's supposed to be cash. I forgot.
as my students say, just go fill time, coach. So I'm really good at filling time, but I like to tell really great stories, I think. And I believe you're right. Your nephew at the camps, you experience that, right? There is an equity. Everybody is like all in. These young people are all in, and they're doing really hard things, you guys. Like we're not just 15-time state champions, 5-time regional champions, and have 2 global robotics championship awards because they sit around, right? Or that people always say to me, well, do you give them the answers? Heck no, right? I always say I make sure they don't cut off their fingers and I feed them well. So, anyway.
All right,
but-
so those are the 2 things she does. To
Yes,
push her passion forward.
let me just
No
say
one
that
cuts their fingers off.
I have, as a kid myself, and just my own story, that I loved STEM, I loved science, but back in the 70s, I didn't feel welcome in science. And so eventually when I had my own kids, my PhD is in workforce education. So I'm like, my kids are not going to be like all these adults who don't know what they want to do in their life. I'm going to give them experiences. So that's how the whole robotics program started. And we make space for every single kid, whatever their skill level, whatever their knowledge level, whatever their interest level, not only in our program, but we're helping programs across the country develop. And so, New Mexico gets such a bad rap often. And so that is one of my soapboxes. Like, I want to change that. That's why my husband and I host a podcast, STEM Southwest Podcast. If you haven't listened, please subscribe. A lot of people here are guests there on our podcast, but I think it's really important that we talk about the really great things that are happening. And so I think the other thing that we do really well is partner with other organizations. So now, this could be risky, but how many of you feel like we have partnered with your organization in some way? There's a few of you here, right? Okay. So we try really hard to make sure that we're partnering with anyone so that we can open more doors, and we just continue to do that. And so, and I think something else that we do is we're innovative and we have fun. So if you weren't at the Battling Bots event, you should have been there. And we have, I've got flyers, but you can come to another one. We're doing them on Sunday nights at Electric Playhouse. I'll stop there. I could go on.
That's awesome.
What's that, Renee? Oh, BB-8.
And let me say, if you guys have any questions, don't let me take over here. That's what I usually do. Jump in and say, hey, what about this? Definitely make it engaging. But when I heard a lot of things about, making sure you tell stories, right? Which is what we're here today doing. And I think that's important. Making space for your girls, getting out there, partnership. I think all of those things do support your passion to create a comfort zone for girls, right? Our children and our daughters, right? So I think that's great.
Yeah.
So Stephanie, what about your story?
Sure. So, gosh, if I had to narrow it down to the 3 things, right? I think the first
You're
is
a data person, right? That should be it.
well, I'm actually thinking through the laundry list of 20 things in my head.
Yeah,
Sorting. So the first one I think is cultivating community. That's something that's very important to me, and only something that I've started really realizing in the last few years. We have a great community here, women in technology, working in healthcare like I do. it's historically a very siloed community. It's a huge industry here, but it's very, technical people kind of don't usually want to come out to networking events anyway. But trying to break down some of those barriers, cross collaborate, really facilitate a conversation, and like, let's start talking about some of the issues here. Like, can we look at the data to facilitate some of these conversations? How can we work together to lift all boats? So I think cultivating community is something that I do. In my professional life, I like to break down silos between, historically adversarial entities like a hospital and a health plan, which historically they're always at war. But sometimes data can actually be a bridge, and sometimes just talking to people can be a bridge. Collaboration and knowledge sharing, I think, goes into that. Cultivating community. A lot of times people feel like they want to hoard their knowledge for various reasons, or maybe they're afraid to share what they do know. Really encouraging people to get out there and like, let's share ideas, let's talk about ideas, let's brainstorm together. Because really, if we don't brainstorm beyond our own four walls, we're not going to really ever succeed. So I think cultivating communities is number one. Number two, something that goes along with that is just speaking up and speaking out. I'm a very loud person, just as a person, but I think that metaphorically as well. Putting my opinion out there, putting my thought leadership. Sometimes people don't always want to hear it. That's fine. We all have our own, our own ways, and we all have our own personality types. But really trying to create an environment where people feel comfortable to do that. And really, at the end of the day, I'm trying to start conversations and really trying to understand why, and try to understand why people feel certain ways that they do, and what can we do to fix things. So speaking up, speaking out. And then the third, I think, just putting my money where my mouth is. And what I mean by that is a lot of times people say, yeah, we support women in technology, or we support women, or we support minority-owned businesses, or we support small businesses. And then when they're in a decision-making position in their company, they don't actually buy from those people. They don't actually give them a chance. Or they may not even recognize within their own self that they have internal bias, even though outwardly we want to support each other. And even when it comes to supporting New Mexico-based companies, sometimes I think I grapple with this, in myself, some self-esteem issues with, yeah, we want to support local. Oh, but that's a local company. Like just recognizing within yourself, like if you want to be a true supporter of women or minority or technology or small business or whatever it is, buy from them, give them a chance, invite them into your office with your colleagues and your executive sponsors, hear what they have to say, give them a chance. I think that's reflected in how I choose my doctors, how I choose my people that I work with, or vendors that I bring in, or interns that we work with. I mean, across the board, just constantly evaluating and what can I do to really further this cause. So those are probably the top three.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I think it all comes back to that.
I think I analytically counted more than three. Did you guys? All right. No, but it all is the same. So that cultivating community, what we're doing here, the speaking out, and what I call walking the talk, right? I think that's absolutely important. I want to do a follow-up question.
No,
Is
please.
that okay?
Yeah.
Because one of the challenges that I've had, you talk about the healthcare industry and the use of analytics, right? And how successful that is. And then you talk about these silos between the healthcare provider and the health plan, I think you talked about. But there's like a lot of silos in our community, right? Where people have all these advanced, really cool, I think of the federal world, where you've got all these pockets of analytics happening, and they don't seem to see that it's a transferable skill set, that they get into this mindset of, I'm in healthcare analytics, right? Where that body of data analytics and having decisions driven by data is a concern across the board, not only for private companies, but for public government, right? And so how do we, in what you're doing to break down those barriers, what's a repeatable thing, and maybe something I'll take to that next question, right, that we can all do to take advantage of data and break down those barriers and create the skill sets within our own problem sets that we're trying to solve, wherever you are, working for the city, working for C&M, how can we create that common community, right? And have those silos being broken down. What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh, that's a tough question. So I speak from healthcare. That's pretty much the only industry I've been in for the last 10 years, so I'm biased. If I were to think about what kind of skills or traits or tips might transcend industry, this is something that always stuck with me as an analyst. I read somewhere, basically when we're looking at data, no matter what position we're in, if we're looking at data to try to make a decision, whether it's going to Yelp and looking for reviews, or whether it's an executive trying to make a strategic decision with the data, I read that basically we're all just looking for our own confirmation bias. I'm going to Yelp to I'm like, I don't know about this guy. I'm going to go to Yelp and like read these reviews. And then I go and focus on all the like 5 really negative ones. I'm like, I don't know. Or, like I've already got my mind made up. And in a professional executive role, I think I've seen some similar things where executives will come to me or to us or to the team for answer this question or look into this thing. They already know what they want to do, or you tell them, well, this appears to be what the data is saying. They're like, that doesn't seem right because I know X, Y, Z. So I think across domain, something that can transcend is if you're trying to be truly data driven and you're trying to really use it in a decision making capacity for any reason, ask yourself first if you're trying to just confirm your own bias, and maybe that might help open your eyes to some of the other alternatives if you really wanted to start using data that way. And that's the best I can do on the fly. But
That's
I'm
awesome.
sure there's
That's
a lot
awesome.
more.
That's awesome. We'll have more conversation about that. That's a hot topic for me right now. But Tara, let's talk about your open source world, okay?
Yeah.
And opening doors. And I loved what you said that, learning to code through the open source community is awesome, right? I know a lot of young people who says, well, I want to code. And I'm like, okay, well, we need to go to school and we need to do this. I said, no, you don't. No, you don't. Just go online, go do that thing. It's all out there to learn.
Yeah.
And I think this past year, right, people get it now, right? Because everybody's working online and learning online and they know they can do it. But I'm sure at the time that wasn't the case
Yeah,
for
it was
you.
a little less common.
Right. But share with us, what are 3 things you're doing to push that equity within that open source community?
Yeah, so these numbers about Albuquerque being top 10 and we're 30% of the workforce here. Open source is 93% male, like on a good day. There's typically not racial data collected, but it's just going to show you, it could show you some pictures. It's all white people. It just is. So it's very homogenous. But the software is powering every company on the planet. Like trillions of dollars of value are being generated off of volunteer work, essentially. It's really cool. It's really beneficial to the volunteers, but it's not trillions of dollars worth of beneficial to the volunteers, right? And so part of what I really think about with open source is that these are products that are going to Mars, like Linux is on Mars now, powering entire governments around the world, in countries around the world that don't speak English. English is like the lingua franca of open source, as it is in tech in general. And so I just think, this is already changing the world. And yet the people making it are just this tiny fraction of humanity, just this tiny, generally well-meaning, but like very limited part of humanity. And so what I like to think about with open source in terms of how you make your career, how I made my career, how I see other people doing it, is contribution back to the project, right? You work out in the public, which is so scary. And especially when you don't have that degree or you don't have those credentials or you don't fit in because you're the only woman or you're the only whatever thing you are, it's terrifying to think that now there's going to be a record of all your mistakes and all the things you outrun, right? But it's also incredibly powerful. It's like having mentors from around the world to help you. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I acknowledge that we look like we're diving in the deep end, but I'm going to be here to catch you, right? Like, so I think mentorship very directly of women and people of color and people with disabilities and all kinds of people, like people coming in later in life. It's so important to be able to be that. It doesn't really scale. Like in technology, everybody's obsessed with scaling and doing things at scale. It's really kind of a one-to-one thing. You really have to be there to help one person jump in the deep end and then help the next person jump into the deep end. So that's one thing I've really been focused on in the Drupal world. I'm in the core. So there's this mentoring team that's sort of like guiding all of the mentorship for the Drupal project. So I'm part of that. Really, really passionate about that. And then another way you can really make your open source career work is by speaking at events. Open source loves to have conferences and events and things, and it's all volunteer speakers, right? And so the people who speak are the people who get known, are the people who get good jobs. It's really like a very virtuous cycle for those people. So I'm involved in a couple of different initiatives that are targeted at helping women, people of color, people who don't fit in for whatever reason, learn to speak, or often they actually know how to speak, they're just scared. So a lot of dealing with imposter syndrome, helping people see their own value. And basically, I think when you have those two pieces, I know that public speaking is not for everyone, but sometimes it's blogging or sometimes it's other kinds of content. That can really kind of supercharge your presence in the open source world. So I just try to give back to those people in that way. Yeah, I mean, it's really one-to-one. It's all just relationships. Like, I know technically it's software, but it's all just relationships.
So, what would you ask? Because the open source community seems inherently a type of community that relies on mentorship, code review, and that kind of guiding others, because you're at the end, your product is that teamwork, right?
Yeah.
So for those out in the audience and everywhere, what would you ask of them to do to encourage people or get involved and support you in pushing that passion forward?
I mean, I always think there's sort of like this, oh, you should volunteer, right? Which is great, but it's sort of one person against like a boatload of work, right? Making open source is a boatload of work. So I'm always looking like, if you have people at work, if you are in charge of people's time at their job, give them time to contribute. I don't know a single business that doesn't have some open source software somewhere in the pipeline.
Who does? Who uses open source somewhere?
I bet more than
All
I would
right,
guess.
you just got some people.
Yeah, so for me, it's like, rather than trying to get the individual to contribute, because we have lives, we have families, we have all the stuff that being human is, right? And we have day jobs. Like, I don't really believe in saying, oh, you should also go 20 hours a week on your own time, do this, unless you want to. It's a fine hobby. So I like to ask companies to sponsor work with paid time, even if it's 2 hours a week. And so I'm all about getting people in there, whether it's technical and submitting patches or submitting changes, or marketing. A lot of these projects need help with marketing, storytelling. There's just kind of an infinite amount of work, really. So I really like to sort of look at it one level above a single person's ability to contribute, because they're going to burn out. It's just not sustainable. But if a company, I'm full-time paid to contribute. That's quite a substantial investment from my company. But it's like, when you look at the full amount of open source work that gets done, it's just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
So the more we can do that and sponsor people, so they're not having to take away time from their kids or whatever, that's really what I think is most
Oh, I
important.
like that. So all of you who raised your hands,
Call me,
what
I
are
will
your
help.
thoughts? I mean, are you doing it now? So now Sue Ann's asking everybody questions, but that's okay. So Heidi, come on. If you're using it at work, right? If you're coding in it, where is that contribution back to the greater project of the quality of whatever version or project that is? Are you guys consciously doing it, or your employees are just like doing it and you don't know about it?
That
No,
all
I mean,
happens.
we have an item in our timekeeping system
That's awesome.
where we
Bravo.
log our volunteer work. Like, it's something that's encouraged to actually move up the
Okay.
ranks in our company.
Okay.
So it is part of our DNA.
Okay. So is the contribution to the open source community a volunteer type thing that you're tracking?
Yes.
So
And it's not just open source.
Okay.
It's the community at large.
Okay.
So it's homeless shelters here in
Oh, I
in the
see.
city. It's like, we let the individual choose how they want to contribute to their community.
all
So
right.
we don't dictate that it has to be in technology, because not
Yeah.
everybody is hot and passionate about it more than 8 hours a day. Some people are definitely way beyond that. So
Yeah.
we actually don't say it has to be this vein of things.
So does any, go ahead.
I want to say too that it doesn't necessarily have to be that you're going into code.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's
Oh, I see.
documentation that has to be done
Absolutely.
on every single one of these projects. If you're a writer, please come in and put in the commas. Those people do not know how to use commas.
We suddenly went to
There are-
punctuation in this Women in IT.
Very important.
There are other
Yeah.
ways to contribute besides
Absolutely.
writing code. And
Absolutely.
it's actually part of the, that piece of it.
Yeah.
There are lots of other ways to contribute.
But I think Tara's ask is, what company out there is paying their staff to contribute?
So you got one.
Yes. Yeah.
So we are part of the MIT Staff Love Network.
Oh, nice.
And so I have staff that I pay to go back to our incredible open source courses that are MIT courses that are free. I mean, and we volunteer, so our group spends probably 20 a month, but we're a tiny little group instead of it. But you know, one other thing that really jumped out at me when you were speaking is that I started consulting. Oh, okay. So I started consulting for MIT after I sold my laser manufacturing company, and my undergrad is in piano performance from Juilliard,
Wow.
and I have an MBA. So we can only imagine what that could be like, going into a room with Nobel Prize winner PhDs. And I think the thing that we as women have to really realize is what I learned at Juilliard is not to be afraid. And I just wasn't afraid of these guys. They weren't Leonard Bernstein. Right? They were just some kind of scientist guys. And I wasn't afraid of them.
Yeah.
And they were so welcoming. And they would sit down and say, Sarah, we really want to know about your 1 minute 3 nanometer laser. How can we narrow that? And we would get out our, our calculators, and it didn't matter that I didn't have it.
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
think we have to not be intimidated or afraid.
Absolutely.
And-
Plus,
Yay.
yeah.
Here. All right. So Stephanie, did you do your ask yet? So what's your ask for, in supporting the use of data analytics, or your passion to break down some of those barriers, right? How do you get everybody here to walk that talk?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of funny because unfortunately we were having some technology issues during the live ceremony. And so during my acceptance speech, it cut out through a whole black section. And then I came back and I said, so that's my plea to the technology community.
All right, you have an opportunity here. Let
Nobody So I think it was pretty much what I said about one, like, let's band together and really, like, rising tides lift all boats. So what can we do to cross collaborate? It's a small enough community in New Mexico that we can have major impact if we band together, especially in the technology community, and especially like woman to woman. I think there's a natural tendency to be competitive, whether that's drawn from insecurity or whatnot, I think, or even fear. I think I was clean, if I could remember, for everybody to kind of band together. We're all in this together, rising tides lift all boats. And then, yeah, to kind of walk the talk and invite these folks into your executive meetings and invite them to come pitch to your company and give them a chance. I think that was kind of the gist of it.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, Shelley, you probably have a whole list of asks for us.
I do, but I just want to say,
Just go ahead.
I was reading some research just today, and our girls are scoring 4% higher than their male counterparts in math. We don't think that, right? It's surprising for us to hear that, but even more surprising, it's surprising for our daughters to hear that. They don't believe in themselves. They're much more impacted by a bad grade, a discouraging comment. So I want to say, like, go home, go out on your way home, make sure that we're just encouraging others, and to reach out to those young women in STEM. You might have time to provide mentoring moments, I call it. Maybe you only have 5 minutes, maybe you have 15 minutes. We're growing this Girls into Tech program, and so I invite all of you to be part of that. We're going to talk data after this conversation, but so if you work for a company that does volunteer hours, or if you are interested in sponsoring a girl, or you want to link us up with a school to create more of a program, I just ask and invite that, and listen to our podcast. Share it. Yay.
Awesome.
So
Very good.
that way we can talk about all the amazing things happening in STEM in our state. So
So to that,
Yes.
add something to
mentor moments. And
Yes.
I think, hear the word mentorship and we think of this long, drawn out, like investment, which is important, but I can't stress enough how important it is. And whether it's, standing up, just not even saying a word, but being a front of young girls to look at someone, whether it's science, technology. And so I really shout, that's my aspect of women in tech, is, really look for opportunities to have that moment, whatever it is, whether it's just presence, whether it's a word of advice, whether it is, more involvement, speaking at events or being on a panel. But I think that is have the biggest impact that way because, a mentorship program is a lot. It's very much involved, but I think you look at it, each one of us could have moment how many.
Well, and I'd like to add to that. And this is a personal story, and there's people here who probably can appreciate this. You have to recognize you need to do that with the people who work for you, okay? And recognizing when you need to do more to provide them a space to raise their voice, and recognizing when they're being challenged, right? And when you don't do that, you failed them, and you have to take action, right? And that action starts with yourself, in making sure that they're given those moments of grace and recognition to raise their voice. And that's an everyday kind of thing you need to do, especially if you're managing a team, right? Or you're managing a whole agency or division. It's how do you make sure all those voices are heard? Because there's a lot of women in tech, even that work within my agency, that I have to ask them the question, because they've got a lot of developers who are very strong in their opinion when they're trying to tell the CIO what they need to do. And I'll say, and Katie, what are your thoughts on that, right? And I think asking those questions and making it an everyday habit not only gives that person, that woman, that empowerment, but it also makes the team recognize that they need to ask the opinions too, right? Just to say. All right.
Can I follow up on that?
You can, of course.
I want to say, number one, James represents this here tonight. I heard him introducing his daughter. He brought her with tonight, right? So we might not have an hour to give to mentor, but could we not have all invited another young woman to join us here tonight? Yeah. Like, just think about those things that you can put into your life that are a piece of it, right? Yeah, and the opportunities. I always say, like, that besides making sure they're well fed, I open doors of opportunity, right? And I might not have all the answers, but I can help connect them with somebody that does. And so I know you've had your hand raised.
Yes, come on, Leslie.
I do this a lot, right? I speak, I have friends that I have mentored and worked with to get into IT and so now lately I've been working on getting my daughters who are older, right? They're already in their 30s. They've got associate degrees, they have some experience. You go out to Indeed and look for entry-level data analytics, a bachelor's degree with 3 to 7 years experience. I'm sorry, that is not an entry-level position. And how are we going to get young people into the profession if that's what we're considering an entry-level requirement to start? Both of my daughters can do a lot of repetitive SQL queries and paste to Excel and do comparisons and find mismatched data and reload those days. I mean, it is not something that takes the lead data architect's skills to do. But that's the project that I'm on because we don't have any worker bee. I keep telling my boss, I am a queen bee and I need worker bees. What to do and have them go and do all of my stuff, and I will follow up with them and make sure they did it right, and we'll all get a whole lot more done. But I don't have any worker bees, and we need to be able to have that entry-level position that we can train. I can train people how to run queries. Then they'll get excited about the things that they can do. And they learn how to write better queries. And then they want to know more about, and you just get that excitement and you learn. But if we don't get those people in, they can't.
I call those interns, right, Andrea? Where's Mary? Where's Mary? But I think, that there's, people think of interns as high school people. And quite frankly, I see them at any stage of the game, right? And I think that kind of walking the talk thing, right? Are we willing to create those spaces and those positions? Because it is a position. And right now, I'll be honest, it's state government. We don't even have it as a classification, right? So I'm like, okay, I need this. Right? What do I call this? Because it's got to be IT. But the lowest I have is a QA, a quality assurance person who's got to have, to your point, a bachelor's degree and 3 to 7 years experience. And I'm like, all right, I just need to work.
That had skills how to do that?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. Grow your
But
own.
HR isn't gonna let you hire them.
Interns.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm trying to say something to that. Because Joanne has the influence to encourage her contractors to hire people who don't have degrees, right? RS-21, RSI, you guys can hire interns who don't have degrees who just take our boot camps. And the more companies that do that are going to create these pathways.
Yep.
And if they're well-paid internships, which is possible, we tend to assume internships have to be free. Yes.
Oh, no, they should be paid.
They should be paid. They definitely should be paid, and that would be able to bridge the gap and get that experience. But we have to speak differently.
In 2020, the White House Workforce Task Force, led by Ginny Bernetti, my hero from IBM, got the White House put forth a directive,
Yes.
the White House directive, where the federal government, the largest employer in the United States, is now considering skills over grades.
Yes.
Getting
Yes.
some time for that to get going, and I hope that the Biden administration continues that, and I know Ginny is in there fighting for us.
Excellent.
So we have to see that trickle down to states.
Very
And we
good.
should believe in a living wage. I mean, for everyone. You're an adult, you should have a living wage. And we need to rethink the way that small business treats people when they, when they want to hire them. Because we should pay a living wage.
Anyone? I'm taking the fifth on that as a workforce agency. I don't think I can comment on that. I'm here on a personal basis, though, just so that's clear. I'm not representing the agency. But minimum wage needs to be enforced, and that's what we do. It just needs to be. You would like?
No, I just wanted to say, like, we can wait for it to trickle down, or we can all try and do something about it now. As a small business owner, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it is difficult to pay that minimum wage, especially when I'm paying high school interns. I would like you to redefine internships. A lot of times we think it's college age, but honestly, if we wait until college, we're losing so much of our talent. Our young people need to get connected when they're young. And, we can set up volunteer programs for them and do things like that. There's a lot of innovative programs out there, but I agree. There needs to, but I think we can do something about it.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, ask the questions, ask the hard questions, speak up like you were, like, let's use the data, figure out the data and how can we support that within our companies.
Well, and create structure, create structure. I'm like pretty loud, but that's hard to beat there. But we have this whole high school, and we work with junior achievement. And one of the positions at the workforce agency and in government in general is we pay our interns, right? We can't take anything for free, apparently. So that's what I think everybody needs to have that mindset. But Shelley, what I liked about what I saw at the camp was that you had instilled, by having your high schoolers work with younger kids, you created almost this expectation that as they learn, they had to teach and mentor. And I think that we can do that with our staff, right? I mean, at Workforce, we have a lot of developers that we ask to knowledge share, and we ask to cross-chain, but you're doing it like right from the get-go. And I think that's important.
I want to add to that. By high school, it's almost like we've lost them in some ways. So I'll go a little deep here. I'm actually a high school dropout. I dropped out at 15, 16. I didn't have a really strong support network. I graduated from college with about $90,000 of student debt. I could have gotten to where I am with programs like that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
If you're waiting till college or high school, too many people have fallen through the cracks, especially here in New Mexico.
Yes. Yep.
Thanks for sharing.
And the-
this with me. That was inspiring.
It really is.
Yeah.
I don't talk about it too often.
Awesome.
So to
And we don't
see
talk about
someone
it.
Standing up in a Women in Tech honoree
Thank you.
to have gone that far, like that's cool.
And it's ironic to me. So I'm the first college grad in my family, but I literally was programming at 12 and 11. I was making these little quick basic programs, and they were pretty like top of class. Not to brag.
But you can.
Yeah.
Don't say that to brag. We need to brag, right? And damn it, I was at the top of my class. That's what you need to start saying.
And that sort of thing was not encouraged in my family, not because they didn't care, but like blue collar family. They're like,
Right.
And so I
They didn't
dropped
understand
out.
it. They
Yes.
did not understand it.
I serendipitously ended up back in college. I had to put myself through college. I'm still paying off my debt. I think if we can get in front of it, we can catch people early. College or high school is almost too late. I'll
Agreed.
dovetail into that to say that I do think even some of my college education was probably completely irrelevant to what I'm doing now. I consider myself an Excel ninja in analytics. Unfortunately, that's a thing. I'll defend it to the death, but they didn't teach a lick of that in college. So I think, again, I could have gotten to where I am today without some of that formal education. I got the education so that I could feel more competent and more allowed to be where I am today. But I don't.
So I
for what it's
still always have to ask somebody how to do a pivot table in Excel. I don't know, care how many times I do it. I still am like, oh, this is just a pivot table. How do I do it? So now I know who to call. I called it. Stephanie, the Excel ninja. Awesome. Do we have any other? I have no idea, Renee, where my time set is or what have you on anything here.
25 minutes.
All right. So I'd like to open the floor to any questions or any comments.
I just
Absolutely.
had a comment. I attended a few weeks ago. I attended MTech, which is and it's the future of work. And if you have the money to attend it, and they changed topics. It was different than what I thought it was going to be because they focused a lot on diversity and how education is changing everything. But there were some remarkable people there. There was a young woman of color there that has developed these little micro courses. She takes people that are really wouldn't expect to get anywhere, but they could do a micro course, and they stack the micro courses to get where they're going.
Right.
And also, and I heard she spoke. She gave a fabulous presentation. A bunch of the other people were. In fact, I'd be happy to give you the.
Yeah,
the
I
code
think
for
it's
the
time for us
conference, 'cause
to
there
do.
was just so much absolutely wonderful stuff, and it was all the educational stuff wasn't. They were talking about no, it's not going to necessarily be a degree. So I think degrees are good in some ways, but not a lot of ways. But she actually talked. They talked a lot about different approaches to getting people where they need to go.
Yeah. So I'd actually, that idea of the micro courses and building that to me from a re-education standpoint is important. I've been looking for those. My son here, gotta get personal. My son's an artist. And I say that, I did do that. I did air quotes tonight. I'm sorry. My son is an artist.
There we go.
And he was talking about going back to school, and I was like, okay, but it's the pandemic. I was like you can do a lot of that online, right? And he's like, well, I don't think you can do art like that. I want to do this. And I said, well, just go ahead and do it. They got master classes all over. He's there, YouTube community with people in Italy and all this stuff. So I think those opportunities now post-pandemic can only grow. I'm still traditional though. I still want a degree at some point in time. So I like bringing young people in, but then making sure they get the degree. And I think that's still my old school. When I was, I had gotten my bachelor's, I'd gone overseas, Peace Corps. I came back, was working for an engineering company on Kirtland Air Force Base. And I was running pretty much the development team, but I wasn't managing the development team. And the man that was managing the development team did not have a degree. He was a hacker. He was a this, he was a that. But he'd been in the industry for years. And I was doing most of the work. And so I asked my boss, why am I not managing that team? And my boss said, because you don't have a degree. And I said, I've got my bachelor's. He said, well, you need to get your master's. I said, so I need to get my master's to manage this team when you have somebody who has no degree and is a hacker managing the team. And he's like, yes.
Because he's a man.
Well, and let me be clear, it was the best thing and best advice that I could have been given at the time. Because to boot for that, the company paid for it. Okay, so I didn't have that. So I was like, okay. I went and I got my master's. And the day I got my master's, I went and flopped it on his desk and said, okay. And he said, okay. And within a month, I had the job. But that degree, while not important maybe for that instance, we know long-term lets you open those doors. So it's got to be not just a one and done. It has to be that continuing education. So while I may have my master's, I can't work Microsoft Teams. I've forgotten totally how to, do .NET code right now. I'm totally behind on that. But those little micro courses have to be there. And I think it's a matter of, we have to get the kids knowing that you don't just do one thing, right? It's not one education. It's always learning, right?
I think
So.
too, it's the employers investing in the education, right? It can't be a contingency because the pathways into technology. Because of specialization.
Oh yeah.
I think as long as it's not a contingency, that it's.
Yes.
Health protection.
Yep. Agreed. Agreed. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and we've talked about it with the C&M Deep Dive Boot Camp a bit about how do we take those boot campers and make sure they continue to learn, right? And get the degrees that long term may be beneficial for them. So that's awesome. I'm going to swing back around. Do we have something we're supposed to read?
We were just talking about that. So a couple of the women in tech honorees weren't able to join us. So we'll share that on social media.
Okay.
But I think with the next 20 minutes, there's an ask of each of the ladies, audience. That would be
Yes.
fantastic. If you have any comments or questions or commentary.
I think everybody wants to get to those bacon wrap things again. All right.
The air conditioning.
I have a thing that's kind of tangentially
Yes.
related.
Yes.
So, I am on the governing board of Amy Beal, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
a charter high school downtown. Our mission is scholarship and service. Amy Beal was a Rhodes Scholar, I think. We went to South Africa and tried to help end apartheid and was killed. Her parents started a foundation and they traveled with one of the men that killed their daughter, and they were part of the healing in South Africa to get through. So anyway, so we got the board, we have a great school, we need board members. We specifically are looking for an accounting person. Our treasurer, after like 20 years of being on the board, is finally his wife is making him stop. And so we really need a
That I can
treasurer.
help with.
And we also need another general at large member, like our other long-term members. And so in being on a board. We meet monthly. We have meetings right down here at the school. It's a great old building. We're a great group of people that try to do a really good thing with some of the really hard to teach students in the city. So
That's awesome.
if you're
So we've
interested,
got volunteers going to
reach out
line
to
up for
me,
that.
Volunteer, yeah, I'll hook you up with the right people.
I don't know any accountants, but
Yeah, I know. I keep asking Renee to hook me up with some accounting people because she knows. I know
my son took accounting, but you know what? He's an artist. Artist now. He's an accountant, but he's an artist.
That's how you really feel, Sue.
That's awesome. Any last questions from the audience?
I just had a comment that I'm a lecture teacher now. And the last thing I do in my course, which is actually mostly dedicated to data and information governance, with the very last module is on there's a big kind of movement toward the merger of art and science together.
Yes.
And I showcased this woman that's Asian background, and she's started out with all of this data structure stuff and everything, but she makes beautiful art too. So she does both things.
Well, we had an event, art, the intersection of art and technology, and because I think that's it. When we talk about data visualization, I think there's art, right? Yeah. There is art in that, and I think it's very similar.
Unfortunately, my coworker Jess Duvernay, who's another woman in tech honoree, could not be here today. I really wish that she could have been to contribute. You mentioned your son, the artist. I talked to Sandra recently, her students, about this. Technology actually needs artists and creatives more than ever.
Yes.
User-friendly like interfaces that should not be designed by people like me and by developers. That's one of the reasons RS21 has seen such tremendous success, because we can bring that human, artistic, creative element to technology and data. I really wish she could have been here to talk more about that, but
she will have stuff online for you to read.
Yes.
Andrea.
If I could just announce something real quick. So I think I know most of you, but my name is Andrea, I'm the director of CN's camps. We have funding that CNM received from the CARES Act. Most of our boot camps can be, all of our boot camps can be offered for free for most New Mexico residents. In addition, use makerspace memberships, Monica's business programs, like we have. Please talk to us if you guys are interested. Talk about how you can get into it, to get people into technology like this is happening. So help us right now for all our programs.
And did you all understand that, right? So this is money for people in your organizations or neighborhoods to go get trained in a deep dive, or even some of the alternative deep dives. So it can be somebody skilling up. Don't think, the 17-year-old, think whatever genre, right? The agency, okay, now I will be workforce, right? Re-employment of people and skilling people up is important. I feel like we've gotten a lot of people working here now who don't want to go back to San Francisco, right? Or don't want to go back to the West Coast or East Coast and places that, they've got a quality of life now. So this kind of skill up thing, and it being, again, paid for, is an opportunity you can't miss. And I'm sure the steps are there. I've actually done and taken advantage. At workforce, I was like, well, we pay for everybody else to get trained. Can I send my guys to the boot camp? And will you pay for that? Is that okay? Can that happen? And it can happen. You just got to ask and push it and say, yeah, this is good, right?
So that is exactly what I was going to say. It's, I sit in the tech employment space, right? And right now, New Mexico is primed. We have this tremendous opportunity where we're seeing a 40% increase of talent coming to our state, often with another company, but they're in our reach, right? And so the opportunity as an employer to reach out and hire someone, whether it's at the intern level, whether that's, maybe it's at a level 1 or level 2 or a little below what you need, and skill them up through a program, like deep dive or
sending them to training, investing in your people, right? We have to get more progressive and creative as a tech community in Mexico. And right now is the time because people are coming to wide open space. All of our surrounding markets are oversaturated, they're overpriced, and we have to seize the moment and we got to act now. So, we don't want to let these people, fall through our fingertips. So now is the time to get creative, invest in your people, look for these opportunities at all levels.
All right.
Are you finding the opportunity? So right now, there is a lot of interest because there's so much momentum and the demand for tech talent, but it's on a national scale. So as a local employer, you have to take a step back and you really have to assess, how do I be competitive on a national scale, right? It's not always cost. That's part of it. Sometimes that's more prevalent with more niche skills and high demand skills, but sometimes it's investment through technology and growth. Sometimes it's remote, work-life balance. So there's a lot of things that motivate people. Mission driven, right? We talked about that a little bit. This next generation of workforce is all about the mission. And so we have to change the approach that we hire, we attract people, and we have to tell a different story as an employer. And so the short answer is yes, there are people that are looking for passion and drive and opportunity, but we have to speak in their language and we have to change our approach as employers.
And we have to tell our stories, right? So the state government is hiring. I've got like 3 positions, just saying. All right, app dev 3. We've been looking for 1. Network administrator 3. We've been looking for 1, and 2 sysadmins. So we have been struggling because of the competition, right?
So I'm here to help people employ, but I'm here to give you advice too. If you ever have questions about the market, about how to make yourself a little bit more competitive, kind of tailor your approach. But we do have to change our approach for sure.
Awesome.
So if I could also start a little bit. So can you tell us a little bit how the hiring is going to go right now? How's your looking for you? What are your needs? What are your gaps?
So at the Russ Group, we're constantly, we always have some open slots at the time. Software development, software engineering is so different. We're competing with people that sit here in Albuquerque, work in San Francisco.
Oh,
The San Francisco team is going to pay them.
What I do.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely.
So it is a national competition.
Yeah.
Which is exactly right. But the other thing is that for infrastructure work, networking, yeah, it's basic plumbing of IT, networking, setting systems up, building the data centers, those type of things. It's difficult to find that.
well, and I'm also, it's interesting you say that. We're having trouble finding it, but we talked about silos, and I'm like, we got freaking Los Alamos Sandia National Labs, right? And we have, all the Air Force bases. All of them have really solid stuff, right? It's a question of how do you attract those people, especially for me, obviously for state government. But I also think that we've talked about cyber being kind of this need. I'm going to tell you, it is skyrocketing. I mean, it is absolutely crazy right now for any government organization, especially government organizations that are an agency like Workforce Solutions. I mean, the hackers are there, the black market is there, and they're coming to take you down. And that whole cyber warfare, the Air Force actually has a command in upstate New York. But we need that command in the state, right? We need that talent too to do it because the vectors are changing so rapidly.
So the programs, I don't know, CNM has programs, sure. But you gotta keep the young people.
Yeah. Well, I call it growing our own, and I've been doing okay with it. But I want to turn it back to our honorees today. I want to thank you both, all of you, for being here today. And I thank you for sharing your story and your ask. And once you're an honoree, obviously you see, you stay, right? You have to stay. And so I can't wait till we meet again and continue to meet again. But let's give him a round of applause. Now,
For, other women in tech honorees, these lovely ladies will be our judges. And so, be thinking about, these women amongst us and out there in the community that are making, headway and impact in our community, and, take the time to nominate them. That is how we boost each other up.
Yep.
Women supporting women and really kind of advocating for each other. And so look for those opportunities. It will be coming probably in the next couple months. After Experience IT, we'll start promoting the Women in Tech event for 2022. So definitely be on the lookout for that.
what's our next WIT event?
So every fourth Thursday of the month, so just block that happy hour. We are fans of happy hour. Women in Tech. So whatever the fourth Thursday of
August.
whatever month we're in these
I
days.
forget what we're in.
August. Although I did the other day refer to December 14th as a start date, and I don't know what I was thinking, but anyways, August, thank you. August 26th is our next Women in Tech. It'll be at 4 or 4:30-ish. I'm sure it'll be some kind of hybrid event. We're finalizing the speaker, but I would say block your calendars for the next August and September and October for Thursday, because there will be some type of topic, and the invite will be going out probably a week after this event.
Yep.
So,
And I'd like to encourage you all to please submit to Renee or Emily topics of conversation, because I already know I want to do more. I know there's a big data peer
yeah,
group,
big data,
right?
cybersecurity.
Right, and cybersecurity, but I'd like us to have our conversations, right? So if you have any ideas, send it to us so we can have, another conversation or some speaker or something else, like, I don't know, battling robots again. That was cool.
Right? And I need redemption. But, we have had the whole. I'm not bitter at all. So much fun. But we've had the whole range of topics, from like career development to wellness to technical topics to telecommuting. I mean, you name it. We've had every range of topic over the last couple of years in the WIT. So we would welcome any input from what you guys want to hear about. There's a newsletter that if you're not already receiving, please sign up when you didn't do it on your way out. That way we can get your input. And if you're interested in being a speaker, sharing your knowledge, there's no better way to have that mentor moment to represent than to get up in front and share your passions and your story, which was fantastic today. Each one of you ladies was inspiring.
Yay!
A little final wrap up and networking. Have some more wine and hors d'oeuvres. Please tip these lovely caterers, and food was freaking fantastic. I have this brown pen.
It's so good.
Yeah, go boxes.
Go boxes, yeah.
Where is it? Where's it?
Right there. Yeah. It's like 2 blocks from your yoga
One
box.
South
It's right there, yeah.
What they serve today isn't on their catering menu. So
Ooh.
just so you know,
Fancy.
they're super wonderful and flexible.
Yay!
Is there like open source, not necessarily like software development projects, but open source knowledge?
Totally.
Because